everyone, welcome back to another episode of Crazy 4. The next few videos will be part of a series where I interview successful individuals for us to learn about the reasons behind their success.
Okay, no worries. Happy to be of help.
Thank you. So before we get started, could you explain your role and your background in your industry?
Sure. So I'm in the private equity industry, and more specifically, we have an investment company that focuses on growth equity investments into tech companies in Southeast Asia, and we are headquartered in Singapore.
So you're just the private equity manager there, or?
So I'm the one of the co-founders and partners.
Got it.
So it's basically our own company, and we do active investments into those companies.
Got it. So what motivated you to join this field?
Yeah, so I joined the tech industry about 23 years ago, when I started as an intern at eBay. And I always felt like it's a great industry to be in. Back in the days when I started in 2000, it was considered the new economy. So the whole vibe, the whole culture was very different. It was very young, very vibrant, very sort of like full of energy. So I was drawn to that industry. And for the past 23 years, I have always worked in the tech industry, either as an operator or as an investor.
So starting from eBay to now, what has your career trajectory or journey looked like?
Yeah, so I spent close to a decade at eBay. So I started off in Germany, where I'm from, at eBay Germany, and then 2004 I relocated to China. I was part of eBay China for 2 years. Then relocated to Korea. I was part of the Asia Pac headquarters for eBay out of Korea, and then landed in Singapore in 2007, working for eBay Southeast Asia. And at eBay, I was always on the operating side, so various functions such as category management, marketing, country expansion, strategy, etc. And then I switched not only companies, but also in a way functions. So I joined a South African headquartered company called Naspers. It's a large emerging market tech investor. And for Naspers, I was a so-called operator investor. So I not only managed companies, but I also did investments into basically companies that
Oh, sorry, I think you're cutting out.
Sorry, I was saying that I spent about a decade at Naspers as well, and that was mainly out of Singapore, but having a global focus. And then also I spent some time in Cape Town in South Africa as well. And then after a decade at Naspers, in 2018, I joined or I started more or less as one of the co-founders, Asia Partners.
You had a long and interesting journey from Germany to Asia to South.
Unfortunately, I'm already 47 years old, so there's a lot of
Some
time that
people
I've
don't have
spent in
such.
my
Yeah, but some people don't have such interesting journeys by 47. That's quite young still. So
Thank you very much.
over this journey, what are some hurdles that you had to cross?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So you can probably think about this as the key hurdles that I had to overcome at each one of those companies, right, that I've been with, right? So eBay, Naspers, and then more recently Asia Partners. So when I started off at eBay, I actually started as an intern, and I was still sort of like studying or finishing up my studies. So back then, I always felt like that I was not good enough. In a way, right? There were always colleagues around me that came from better universities, or they had already kind of like prior experience with great sort of like employers, or they were just more eloquent in meetings, etc. So that was like one of the battles that I fought with, right? Like, am I good enough for this, right? At the very beginning of my career. Then later, when I joined Naspers, obviously the big hurdle that I had to overcome there was that I wasn't an investor before, so I had to learn the investing skills from basically day one, right? On the job, without sort of like what usually happens where investors go through like analyst stints at investment banks, etc. I didn't have any of that, so I had to sort of like learn this, on the job, and that was a big initial hurdle. And then thirdly, at Asia Partners, I never ran my own company before, right? So to build the institution, do things like fundraising, etc. That was a new skill that I had to learn, and a new hurdle that I had to overcome.
So going back to your first hurdle, how did you overcome or convince yourself that you were good enough, the eBay hurdle?
Yeah, so it's all a matter of perspective and focusing on what's right in front of you. So one of the best advices that I have heard being given to junior people is like, hey, just show up on time and make yourself useful, right? It's as simple as that, right? Focus on what's in front of you, and over time, people will recognize efforts that you put into it, right? So it was basically just getting busy and starting to become useful in the organization, and the rest almost kind of like comes automatically. So that was sort of like the first technique how to overcome that hurdle. On both the sort of like investing side, to learn that skill, and then to learn how to run a company. It's always good to remind yourself that you're not in this alone, right? So you have to find, in a way, the right bosses, the right colleagues, the right mentors, and really see this as a team effort. And don't shy away from asking for help. And to also like realize where you may have a shortcoming and where someone else is maybe much better that you can learn from. So that sort of like I would say like perspective, right? Or mindset, not to sort of like see yourself, on your own, and not really with any help, but to see yourself really as part of something bigger, part of a team of ultimately, good friends and colleagues. That is sort of like a philosophy that I follow.
Yeah, I can see how that would help. My next question is that being a not Asian man in Singapore, did you face any, or not, or all over Asia, did you face any challenges due to your identity, or?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I mean, I'm actually half German, half Korean.
Oh.
So you can argue that I never fit in anywhere, right? Because there's no country like Germany plus Korea, right? And this was something I had to learn from basically my childhood, right? I was one of the few pure Germans, right? Growing up in my primary school and high school, right? So and then now moving to Asia, it's the reverse in a way, right? So I'm also not fully Asian, right? I'm much more European from my cultural upbringing, and I think you have to sort of like see this not as an impediment, but more as an asset. So again, it's all in having the right mindset, right, and the right sort of like attitude towards life. So it's not about like, oh, I'm different, right, this is bad, but it's sort of like more of like, hey, I'm unique, right? In a way, I bring sort of like a cross-cultural perspective to things, and can maybe because of that think a little bit more out of the box, or also bridge sort of like that good cultural divide, right? And especially in Southeast Asia, where you don't have a single culture in any case. And a lot of the investments that we do are in companies that have a sort of like a regional footprint, and they have operations only in Singapore, but also in Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, etc. It's actually very important that you bring sort of like this cross-cultural perspective to the work that you do.
Yeah, maybe you fit in everywhere since you're being so helpful.
Yes, exactly. This is how you have to see it, right? You are ultimately a citizen of the world, and that applies to you. Growing up in Singapore, that applies to my kids as well. That are growing up here, and I do think that's a huge skill, an asset to have ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. So over your entire career journey, what are some best practices that you've observed through your career journey? Or like
Yeah.
yeah.
Look, I think the what I often see, especially with junior folks, right, and people that just start their careers and are very motivated, energized, etc. These are all good things to have, but you still have to remember, right? You're playing the long game in a way, and this is more of a marathon than a sprint, right? Look, I ultimately over 23 years of time in the workspace, right? I really only had 3 companies that I worked for or that I founded, right? So that's sort of like an average of like you do the math, but that's like right now 7 to 8 years per stint at a single company, and still going up because I'm not planning to go anywhere from Asia Partners perspective. I often see sort of like a junior talent that gets excited very easily and wants to like hop from this stint to the next and from this company to the next, and I think it's good to learn and it's good to expose yourself to various things, but also it's good to sort of like show that you have a bit more of longer term dedication and loyalty to causes, right? So again, like I think the best analogy that I can think of is like, look, it's a marathon, right? You don't run a marathon just continuously sprinting and sprinting the first 100 meters and the next 100 meters and the next 100 meters, right? Think about this more in terms of sort of like longer kind of like paths, right? That in some cases can easily be multiple years before you too quickly jump on something new.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. Another question I had that, well, you must have noticed that a lot of women aren't involved in like many industries, and I would say like also include your industry. So do you have any techniques or advice that can encourage more female participation in the space?
Yeah, no, it's a good point, right? And what we see is still like if you look at our talent pipeline, and we often recruit from investment banks, etc. There aren't as many female candidates in that pipeline. So, and in our industry, there's sort of like 2 potential career paths that you can take. One is the more conventional. So you after you graduate, you join one of the typical kind of like investment banks. You go through like a 2-year or so analyst program, and then you either continue there or you think about sort of like a lateral move to become an associate at another institution or private equity firm, etc. So that sort of like career move into investment banking after graduation, it's good. It's conventional. It gives you sort of like a lot of the skills needed. The one that is a bit more unconventional, but nevertheless, I would recommend anyone to also think about, is kind of like a little bit more how I had my career, right? So I had my career starting on the operations side, right? As an operator, and that can be, you can be an operator in marketing, in product, in like engineering, you name it, right? It doesn't have to be sort of like, hey, I just will be a hardcore coder, right? It can be any part of being part of the business operation itself, right? And from there, think about then doing more of a lateral move into the investing world, the same that I've done. And this is like something where I think a lot of talent is a bit scared or apprehensive because they feel like they don't have the skills. But these are actually the easiest skills to learn within an investing firm, as opposed to learning the operating skills. The operating skills you cannot learn in an investing firm. You can only learn it in an operating company. So these two career paths I would encourage. Also more female talent to go after.
But I think there must be a reason why people might feel that they don't know these skills. Well, that's just a different in society.
No, exactly. So it's also like the many employers feel there's a risk in terms of bringing on board this operational talent and teach them the investing skills within the firm, because it also requires efforts, right? You need to think about like who is actually teaching those skills within the company. So it's as much of sort of like a suggestion to the talent workforce as it is to employers like myself, right, to take more of a leap of faith with bright talent that brings on board a lot of this rich operating experience and help them then learn the ropes of the investing world.
Yeah, I agree with that. Lastly, if you have any advice you want to give to young people breaking into your space specifically, I know you said about like people joining or starting up their careers already, but if you have any specific for mainly your industry, maybe.
Yeah, so I think the best advice that I can give is like is try to be unique, right, in a way, and it's much easier to be unique if you have experience also from the real world, as opposed to sort of like the more plain vanilla career path of going through the usual banking career and then just continuing to just stay like a typical investing professional. So investing skills, and this is kind of like a repeat a bit of what I said earlier, right? But investing skills for me are more of a commodity, but the operating experience isn't, right? The operating experience is real. It's real life. So if you can somehow manage to have that as a driving force in your career, like how to really build and scale businesses, maybe even think about like an entrepreneurial stint yourself, try to start a startup with some friends, right? These are all experiences that cannot be taught, right? That can only be lived. So that actually is more and more seen as essential if you think about joining a firm like ours.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Thank you so much, Mr. Oliver. That's all.
No worries. I hope it was useful. And if you have, or your listeners and viewers have any more questions, always feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or any other channel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hope it was
Bye.
useful. Have a good day. Okay. Bye-bye.